Menhaden, the oldest and largest fishery in this hemisphere. These are the steamers of Smith Meal Company's North Atlantic Fleet. Each boat is about 150 feet long and carries a crew of 17 men consisting of 5 officers and 12 fishermen. This film is a collection for many days' fishing, put together to bring you typical situations on board a Menhaden steamer. This is the steamer Amagansett, Captain Kenneth Edwards, master, Captain Russell Cox, pilot, now your photographer and narrator. The passage to the fishing ground is usually made at night. However, these shots were made during the day in order to bring the action to you in picture. This is the Amagansett running into a head sea. Your photographer got very wet taking these pictures. The post boats are carried in davits. These post boats are built of aluminum, 36 feet long, powered with 100 horsepower engines. These boats weigh about 3 tons each. Sunrise on the fishing ground. The day's work has started. These are the spotter planes who search the area for fish, thus saving the steamers countless hours of steaming. They are able to spot fish that are deep and not visible on the surface from the steamer. This is the large company plane taking off for the day's work. These are the small spotter planes. You will note the belly plank tags underneath the plane, which enables them to stay in the air for long hours at a time. The plane has arrived over the fishing ground. They have found fish and dropped a green dye marker over the fish to enable the steamer to locate them. While on the fishing ground, the captain, the mate, and the fish driver spend most of their time aloft searching for fish. The captain is now coming down from aloft. The post boats are being lowered. This is the starboard boat, in fishermen's language known as the big boat. The big boat is in charge of the captain. The port boat, also known as a little boat, is in charge of the mate. 1/2 the net is carried in each boat. These nets are 1,200 feet long, 72 feet deep. On the bottom are heavy brass rings through which a line called the purse line is passed. When drawn tight, this closes the bottom of the net like a purse, hence the name. The purse boats have cast off, are now passing alongside the steamer. You will note your photographer standing on the rail in front of the bridge, pointing out the fish to the purse boats. Modern radio keeps the captain in constant communication with the airplane, the steamer, and the factory. The purse boats are now approaching the fish. The purse boats have separated. You will note another steamer on the horizon. The purse boats will circle the fish and come together. The big boat, or the captain's boat, on the inside. Then they will drop the tom weight over the side to quickly close the bottom of the net. Note the splash. There goes the tom weight. These views taken from the purse boat. This is the ring setter. His work is to pass the rings overboard in such a manner that they do not foul. A foul net means a loss of fish. The first boats are now coming together. They will be lashed together bow and stern. The captain mans the tom line. He will bring the tom weight back into the first boat. This is all done by hydraulic power. This is the tom weight, usually weighs about 600 pounds. The net is now being placed in the power block. These power blocks, too, are hydraulically operated and do the work of strong backs. Now the ring setter must place the rings back on the rod, again being very careful that they are placed in such a way that they do not foul. The net is now coming in by way of the power block. This man on the cork line will throw the corks in more or less a parallel line, again, so they will go out straight when the net is set the next time. You'll note the kelp coming in with this set. This is a view from the airplane showing the set. The net is complete. The fish have just struck behind the boats. The net is showing color over the entire net. This is a view from the steamer. The fish have struck the corks in their effort to escape. Here the fish have the net pushed out way beyond the cork line. The plane is looking our set over. He will proceed to find fish for another steamer or another set for the Amagansett. The first boats are now webbing in the net, gradually confining the fish to a small area so they can be picked up by the steamer. The webbing is nearly complete. A man will push the net out with an oar, and the boats will come together in a V. The steamer comes down before the wind to pick up the first boats. The cook and second engineer stand by to take their lines. This can be a tense time, especially with a sea running and 100 tons of fish in the net between the boats. The boats have now been made fast, and this is the first hoist. The first hoist is a group of rings on the bunt at the bottom and in the middle of the net. This will be taken to the end of the gaff. The first hoist is complete. A line is being placed around the net to pull it together. Then they will put another strap around the net and make the second hoist. The strap is now being placed in position. This is being carefully watched by the captain. The second hoist has started. This, being done by power, shortens the fishing time considerably. Formerly it was done by strong backs, as you will see in pictures that follow this one. These are the two hoists, as you will see from the side of the steamer. These fish are showering in the net alongside the steamer, seemingly in their effort to escape. This is unusual and seldom happens. Captain Edwards shrugs his shoulders. He wonders why. Menhaden fishing is probably the most efficient of all fisheries, for the reason that menhaden are gregarious. Few other fish are caught with them. The only waste is the shark, and that because the machinery is unable to process them. The fish have now quieted down. The suction hose has been placed in the net. The electrode has been dropped over alongside the net and the current turned on between the electrode and the end of the hose. This will attract the fish to the end of the hose for suction. Here we have a large Mako shark. This shark has a mouthful of net. Very often, a shark will bite a hole and tear a hole in the net large enough to drive a car through. This means that many fish will escape. An empty hole is depressing to a fisherman. Just to catch something to sweeten the hole with the smell of fish, a sweet smell to fishermen, because it smells like money. Menhaden boats will hunt for fish wherever they can be found, be it offshore in the ocean or in bays or rivers. The pumping is now complete. There are a few fish left in the net. The pump will not pick up. Hence the crew will roll these fish on deck and then shovel them into the hold of the steamer. This menhaden is about 4 years old. Note the black spot on the shoulder. This gentleman is a representative of the Bureau of Fisheries. He is measuring fish and selecting specimens to be studied in the laboratory. This is a stab. the fish have escaped under the net or just run out ahead of the net. Menhaden had three objects in life: to feed, to reproduce his kind, and escape from Menhaden fishermen. A stab takes about the same length of time, but no fish are caught and no pay for their efforts. Many stabs are made during the season. These are the old wooden brace boats that were used before the advent of the aluminum boats, power blocks, and power hoists. These men put their fingers in the mesh of the net and pull. Very often the fish are very heavy. It means cut fingers and aching backs at the end of the day. This is a large set that has been cut. Half of the set has been pumped out, and the second half will be pumped later. This is like tying a rope around the middle of a bag of potatoes and emptying one half and later the second half. This is the second half of the set coming in under the boat. These fish are all alive and easily handled. This is a very large set. They are heavy, and this crew is having difficulty to raise them. When the fishing is heavy, the fishermen will sing chanties to help them pull together. These chanties often reflect their desires, their love, and their fears. They will pull the boat down. The water nearly comes over the gunwale. In this case, the pilot has called another steamer to help raise them. As hard as they pull, they get very, very little net. Here we have two crews pulling one set of fish, a white crew and a colored crew, all pulling together with one object: to save the fish. This is a bailing net. This is the way the fish were formerly taken out of the net alongside the steamer. Here we have dogfish along with the bunkers. The dogfish will not pump. Also, it is difficult to bail them. Later, we let the entire set go. You will note the dogfish on top of the bunkers. Menhaden are the enemies of no other fish, whereas they themselves are at all stages of their life cycle the prey of any fish large enough and swift enough to capture them. Menhaden, also known as bunkers, moss bunkers, bony fish, yellow-tailed shad, and so forth, are a beautiful fish with 40 to 55 rows of silvery scales, a black spot on each shoulder, and 2 or 3 rows of black spots along the back. They have no teeth and are strictly plankton feeders. Menhaden, being the largest fishery, accounts for about 40% of all fish caught in the United States. Yet few people realize that almost everybody is indebted to this industry for something he eats or uses. The protein meal derived from these fish is an important addition to the livestock and poultry industry, thus bringing better pork and poultry products to our table. Each of these fish is worth about 25 cents when processed into protein meal, oleomargarine, lipstick, soap, waterproofing, and about 200 other items which benefit all of us. The hold is being filled. The captain is on the bridge directing operations. There is much gear aloft. All must be watched very closely. The men are leveling the fish on deck with shovels in an effort to carry every fish that can be saved. The day's work is complete. The steamer has been loaded. The push boats are being hoisted. The order given to come ahead, and the voyage back to the factory has started. Menhaden fishermen probably eat better than the average fisherman. Their hours are long, and their work is very hard. This is the cook on the Amagansett preparing breakfast. Most of the crews come from either Virginia, Tangier Island, or the eastern shore of Maryland. It is not uncommon to find brothers or father and son working on the same boat. Many men are second-generation fishermen. The fishing season lasts about 5 months. This is the officers' mess. We have the chief engineer on the left, the second engineer on the right. These men are mending net. Mending net is something that goes on constantly whenever they have time available. This is no doubt a shark hole. Nets must be kept in good repair. Holes in the net means loss of fish. Even a broken bar will allow a fish to stick his head through, which can be grabbed by a shark, causing a larger hole to be made in the net. This is the steamer running back to the factory. This is the Amagansett. Another steamer astern of the Amagansett. She too is heavily loaded. Here the vessel is loaded. Fish are on deck. The water is washing on deck, and many fish will be lost overboard. Here the pin boards have been washed away, and probably half the deck load has been lost. This is the chance that has to be taken on the run back to the factory. This is the Promised Land factory at Amagansett, New York. Some of the steamers are into the dock. Other steamers are coming up the channel. The push boats have been lowered. They will proceed to a slip in the factory, and the steamers will tie up and wait their turn to be pumped. This is the Amagansett at the factory with the largest catch she ever delivered. she pumped out 1,053,000 fish, a record catch for the Amagansett during her lifetime. You will note her decks are awash with water. Menhaden fishermen are paid by the 1,000 fish. In the early days of the industry, some long-forgotten individual decided that a prototype Menhaden would occupy 22 cubic inches and weigh 2/3 of a pound. So they built a box containing 22,000 cubic inches, and that filled with 1,000 fish. Automatic weighing machines now use the conversion of 2/3 of a pound, or 667 pounds to 1,000 fish, or 3,000 fish to the ton. These are the pumps that pump the fish from the steamer. Here we have Captain Kenneth Edwards on the right. The man in the fedora hat is Mr. Gilbert Smith, the last of the Smith brothers, the founders of Smith Meal Company. The dome you see in the engine room is a spare net which is carried when the boats are fishing long distance from the factory. Sunset over Orient Point Light on the east end of Long Island, by which countless millions of fish have passed through the years. Man has demonstrated his ability to catch fish, but he cannot create a fish. Only nature can do that. Nature is order and discipline, with built-in checks and balances. Man must learn that he is not the master, but only the partner in the great scheme of life.